Okay, so.
Good evening. I'd like to call the Dover Select Board meeting to order on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023 at 6:30 p.m. First agenda item is public comments.
I guess congratulations to the road crew.
I have public comment. Okay, hold on. Okay,
I was just gonna say congratulations to the road crew. I mean, that was a horrible storm to have to get the roads clear and we got out. So
all of our staff did a great job.
yes, oh yeah, no. Yeah, theirs was just very obvious.
Tabby.
I'd like to thank whoever it was, fire department, police department, who responded to the call, which thankfully turned out to be a false alarm about my roof collapse. Everybody was there and responding, and the Valley Network got information to me, but thank you.
Jerry.
I just wanted to, I never got a chance to say anything at the town meeting, at our town meeting. And I'd like to thank just not only people on the Board of Selectmen, but all the people who work for the town, the highway department, the police department, for all the good work that they do. You all do a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And I want to thank the people of Dover for coming out on town meeting day. We had probably the best turnout of any town around here. When you only had 60 people at the Wilmington town meeting, and we had well over that in Dover. So I'm impressed that people of Dover want to get involved. I thought it was a good town meeting. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
all right, that's it for public comments. Linda.
I have one. I have a bill, it's H 480, which is the reappraisal bill that I brought up at town meeting. This just kind of came down yesterday, so I didn't have time to get it to you a week ago, but I have.
Does it come out of committee and out of the house?
It's come out of the committee and it's now at appropriations, but basically what this is going to do is remove municipal reappraisals from the town and the state will take it over. And, you know, there's probably some good points to that. There's always good points to things. But what I see happening is the chance that we'll risk losing like our voice, and there's a chance that the BCA will go away. And I would really hate to see that happen, just because one of the things that is unique about living in Vermont is town meeting, you know, how we're still able to meet like that. Things that get handled that can stay in the town, you know, if they decide to go to court or the hearing officer after for an appeal. But I think, you know, we do a really good and unique job as far as our grievances, appeals, Board of Civil Authority, and I really hate to see that go away. I have a hard copy of the bill, and I do have it saved on PDF if anyone is interested in taking a look. I would encourage you to. I had a good conversation with Laura Sibilia this morning. So that was a plus, and I think if you have an opinion that we need to get it up there probably by next week.
Did it make crossover? This crossover was Friday.
Well, it's in appropriations right now,
So it
so
must have, was it voted out of the house?
it was voted, hasn't gone,
So,
it hasn't gone. It was in the House Ways and Means, and then now it's in appropriations. Not really sure of Laura thought that it could get voted on as soon as next week. So that's
yeah,
what I
there's a
have
lot
to
of
say
pretty
about
scary
that.
things. School choice for Dover is gonna be potentially dramatically changed, dramatically. And it's pretty scary, as usual. gets kind of scary in Montpelier, you just don't know what's gonna hit the,
Well,
and actually make it.
and it could go, this all could just dissolve. You know, the LCT has really not had their mitts in it yet, and I think they'll kind of shred it. I'm also requesting oh my God, what's it called? After the meeting,
Exactly.
thank you. Yeah, for personnel,
For personnel.
please. Should be quick.
Okay. All right, anything else? New business. Is next, we're gonna discuss obtaining response rates and costs associated with Rescue Inc. and the Deerfield Valley Rescue. So this was brought up to us at town meeting by Jared. Asking that we look at it, and try to understand if there's a better option. Am I paraphrasing that, okay? Yes,
I think what we want is, God, I'm stuck in my. What we want is the best service that we can get, the medical service that we can provide for our residents, as we have an older group of residents. I'm medium old, so I can speak to that. And I just thought it would be interesting if we could get the response rates from Deerfield Valley and Rescue. And I know that Rescue Inc. does come up here sometimes, and I also know that they service Halifax, and I believe they service Vernon. So it would be interesting to see, you know, we have to pay them, which is different than what we do now. We just give a donation to Deerfield Valley, but if they have better response rates and they can get here faster, then I think that you might want to look into that.
so I guess we should, if we want to get that information, it's really gonna be hard to compare because they're used to driving up here like on a regular daily basis to like serve Mount Snow and everybody else. So that's something that they're not gonna have good data on necessarily, because they do come on when basically maybe nobody else is available, but they're not gonna be the day-to-day, like, okay, today it took us 50 minutes to get there from wherever their ambulance was stationed. Versus our normal response time would be 25 minutes, but because of the roads or the traffic or whatever. So it's gonna be really hard to compare Deerfield Valley, which should have all those response rates, to another entity that hasn't really had the call volume that this area has.
Well, I think you also need to look at the people who are trained to respond as well. You know, if they have better medical service than Deerfield Valley, I think that's something else that you might want to take a look at. I understand. I'm just interested in providing the best medical care to the people of this town.
Sarah?
I was just saying, obviously, we can't just decide this, but it seems intuitively that if someone's coming over from Brattleboro,
I
even
think
if
that
even if they're able to give possibly better service, that additional 20, 25, 30-minute delay potentially is gonna it's going to be it's not gonna compensate for the better care, because if you don't get there in time,
Right.
you don't get there.
I understand.
That would be my concern.
It's been a long time. I haven't been involved with them for, I don't know, 12 years, whatever. They used to drive, the ambulance for Deerfield Valley. And so I'm really not speaking on their behalf. I'm just speaking on my, observations. And my feeling is that, if in fact we were to pull out, so to speak, or how, whatever ends up happening that way, it would be, sort of a really serious problem for Deerfield Valley. And we got to look beyond just the fact that, we're dealing with Dover. If something were to happen that puts Deerfield Valley at risk, then we're also affecting Whitingham and Halifax and, other areas that are covered. Now, maybe Rescue Inc. can do this, but that's we're talking about an army at that point, you know, I think they're up in Townsend or the headquarters is between New Pain and Townsend, put it that way. So, I don't know, just throwing that out.
Other board comments, anybody want to, champion this, or, ask Jeanette to try to get some data from the two companies?
Knew that was coming, right? Knew that was coming.
No, I don't mind.
I mean, there's no harm in asking, I just don't know how. Rescue Inc. would be able to give us the kind of data that we would want, because they just aren't doing that now.
So there's two things from listening to Jerry is the quality of the staff that are coming to the homes and the response time. And then obviously the third would be the cost factor of that. So
And
we want to get the right data, just hear me out. So we need to, just for Jeanette, if she wanted to ask those questions, we'd have to get from both parties. And then what the cost factor would be if we were to enter into some sort of agreement with the rest of it. Obviously, this is going to happen overnight. I agree with you that we should look into other means of doing things. So that's, we'll move forward with that and see what we come up with.
And I certainly don't have anything against
So,
Deerfield
yeah.
Valley. I mean, I've been in the ambulance a few times, so. That's,
I haven't been in the ambulance, I just donate my whatever.
Dan,
Well, we have two esteemed members of the police department. They're aware of whenever 911 call comes. You have a rough idea how long it takes them to get here from rescue in Arbella?
No, because a lot of times we may not get called to, call when, say, Deerfield Valley Rescue is headed there. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, and I have nothing to offer as far as rescue.
So when a call comes in, it's about snow, actually the ambulance is flying past my store. What determines whether it's Deerfield Valley or rescue?
I will assume it's Deerfield Valley because they're what's covered this area.
Yeah.
We do not respond to Mount Snow for any rescue calls unless it's a serious bodily injury or fatality or something like that that is required by law that we need to be notified. So as far as every time I go to Mount Snow, I can't answer that. No one's no good. We don't respond unless they're required to. Not here to be notified.
Not really. The thing with Rescue Inc. is we only see them because no one else is available. So the response time is quite a bit for us when we're on scene trying to help with the situation. It's multiple calls, multiple phones to the other agencies before Rescue Inc.'s call. So when we're in the middle of it, it's too long. I can say that for us, it's too long. But that's also after multiple phones that aren't answered by people because they don't have good staffing available. Or they're somewhere else.
Right.
Jim,
I hate to say this, but I think before Jeanette puts a lot of effort into this, she may want to go to the state, because I believe these ambulances are divided up into districts that have been controlled by the state. And to bring a second provider in or eliminate one provider and replace it with another, I believe it'd probably be a state issue, because I believe there's licensing involved.
I'm trying to think back to when Brattleboro just dumped Rescue Inc. a year ago and brought in Golden Cross. About all of the, I mean, that was a big mess. Yes, Jim.
They had a contract. I think that's a different issue.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, so I don't know anything about this. Jeanette, can you make a call to the state and see if you can find out what the regulations are on that?
In fact, it's like.
Yes. Anything else on that? Okay. Next, we're gonna have the appointments of the Deerfield Valley Communications Union District. Right now, have we reached out to our current, which is TJ Sebelia is our representative.
He's a rep, and then
First
Diane,
alternate is,
Diane McCormick, and then Shannon is the second, Shannon Wheeler. And yes, all three of them are looking to continue to serve.
So I make a motion that we reappoint TJ Sebelia as the DB fiber representative, Diane McCormick as the first alternate, and Shannon Wheeler as the second alternate.
all, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I'm just gonna sign this, Jeanette, you can fill it all out, okay?
Okay.
After you make it forward. Okay. Next, we're gonna consider waiving use of earned time for weather-related events. So Jeanette, you wanna give us the
I can.
story?
I have it written down so that I know what I'm saying. So basically, with the storm that we had last week, this came up for discussion among the town office staff when we were finally able to get back to the office. And we thought we would bring it up to the board for your input. Specifically regarding how to account for the lost time as a result of the storm. Which was extraordinary, in my opinion, in sheer volume of snow. So the office did close Tuesday and Wednesday as a precaution. And 4 out of the 7 staff members in this building, basically talking about the town office staff, were unable to leave our homes, on top of the fact that it was inadvisable to be out on the roads for those days. In addition, at least 3 out of 7 had lost power. That would be me. Internet and phone service, which made working from home pretty much impossible. I did, in my own personal opinion, or personal experience, that's it. I was able to do some from my phone, but eventually my phone, loses its charge. So I actually sat in my car for a while while it charged. So that was the only thing I could do. In my case, I do have plenty of earned time that I can use. But it occurred to me and to others that it might create a hardship for some who perhaps haven't been working here as long, who don't have the time saved up. I did get feedback from all 7 of our staff members, and we thought we would like the board's opinion and on this particular event, and then perhaps hopefully they won't have another one like this. But if it should happen, just get your feedback. We realize obviously the highway and police department had to be out there. Because that's what they do, and but I felt like they had access to the equipment and services that they needed to get out of their homes. In my experience, I couldn't get out of my driveway until Wednesday afternoon. So again, we're just looking for your feedback as to what we should do.
David.
Is there a policy with someone in charge to say the town hall is closed today? We have many people who are on salary, some are on hourly, some are appointed. So.
And he
Is it-
closed the town office for 2 days.
Yeah.
And he closed the town office for 2 days.
Okay. So then, even if they could get to work, they couldn't.
Well, clearly, people have learned how to work from home if they have power, because we did it all through COVID, so we're used to working at home.
Yes.
So that the working at home isn't as much the issue is, in my mind, if you didn't have any power, how are you gonna do any work at home if you're an office employee? You know, if your job was to shovel roofs, you might be able to do that, but if you're an office employee, your job is to do, you know, administrative work. Joe, are you?
I have a couple questions. So we have vacation time. Correct, for all staff. Do we have any personal time for any staff?
Yes.
I don't know how that. Refresh my memory. As a. so you get vacation time and over how many, whatever, that's the personal time.
Personal time is 20 hours per calendar year. So that's every January, your personal, if you don't use it, you lose it. So it goes back to 20 at the beginning of every year. Vacation time depends on your longevity with the town.
But you get it each year and the full time. Sorry, I'm just not.
Oh, and then we have other staff that had to be here. They may not have been able to get out of their driveways because they don't have plow trucks, but they had to get to the town garage or get to the police department for the safety of, you know, just keeping the roads open so that if there's a fire or if there's an accident, those employees had to also, but then they could potentially do their jobs once they got here. So it's kind of a complicated situation. Yes.
Randy, were there any police officers who had to switch shifts or could not make it in to do their assigned shifts for the during the program?
To answer that,
Without giving names, just
no, okay, one had to get out and snow blow their driveway around 5 o'clock or so in the morning, so they could get out and get to work. And as it was, they were late. I had no problem, as you guys know, trying to get my own personal stuff. I also was up at 5 o'clock, I got my own driveway. I know she doesn't care. My admin, Shelley, she had a hard time getting out. She called me on my cell phone. And the minute she called, I answered it, and I said, I'll come and get you. But anyway, she just said that she should be able to be there, but she'll be about an hour late. I'll just go forward and thanking her for getting to the office. Because as you know, from past history, me talking to you about the whole dispatch issue, by having her in the office there, made it easier for two of us that were working that day and dealing with the issues, but also having her there made it easier for the highway department when they were having issues and trying to reach out, they could reach out to her. So to answer your question, there was, probably a hardship for a couple of them. For the night shift, they had all day to try to get themselves out and dig out, but yeah, so as far as switching shifts, coming in late, maybe being delayed if they got called for an emergency, yes.
You done, sorry?
yeah, I was trying to find out if there were any police officers who were unable to work. Late is different than not being in at all.
Oh, right,
So they were, but everybody was able to get in, albeit some people were not on time.
right.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thanks.
Linda?
I just wanted to, Jeanette and I are neighbors, so. I knew she couldn't get out because I could not even see her vehicle, but, I'm remembering back to Irene and, we couldn't get out then either. That I can remember, but, in anticipation, not knowing what we were gonna get, I did bring some work home. And was able to do what I could do. Without having any power, which was probably a couple of hours of work, but, these are things that are not in our control. I mean, I don't know.
Randy?
Yeah, so just one other thing I forgot to mention because, and I know she wouldn't care because she told me, but my admin did say that, if she had the opportunity to stay home and not lose pay, she would have, because as Jeanette said, and I even told numerous people that were, excuse me, Mount Snow, trying to get to Mount Snow. But anyway, that was too dangerous for anybody to be out of work. And she came in because she didn't also want to have to use personal time or whatever. So I mean, if there is something that the board does decide to do as far as like weather events going forward, then I think that would also be good. And for the people in the past, say her, if you're going to benefit, maybe move something towards her way, since she did make it in compared to, because she didn't want to lose any time.
Joe,
So, listening to all this, so I'm just asking, what are you asking of the board? Do you think we should do, is what I'm asking, from Jeanette, from you, from the people that were in the game, what would you like us to do? I know what I would do. What I would say I would do, but I want to know what you want us to think to do. Because I looked at the pay, some people did do work. So I'm just trying to come up with it has to be across the board, and obviously, as Randy said, Michelle went to work, so it's gonna be across the board, whatever we do with that. We couldn't get the work. It's admin positions or positions that are in office. So what are you guys asking from us? And then we can come up with some sort of solution.
Well, I think the general idea was to waive having us use our earned time for those 2 days.
So what you're asking us to do is to pay you in lieu of work for those days. I'm just as straightforward, right? Correct.
I suppose, yes.
So I, as one of the select board members, proposed, because it was 2 days, that I proposed that we. But you have to remember, other people work some hours, and when I was looking on here, I proposed, was thinking 8, but I was thinking like 6 hours. Of time due to the circumstances is a fair board across the 8 positions. Obviously, I know 2 days would be great. I'm just thinking 6 hours would be better than none. I don't know what the other board's thinking, but that is my thought process. I was thinking 8. But after seeing some people are able to do some work, you know, that's.
I think we should go to 8 across the board to every employee, 8 hours of personal time. That they can. You know, that's what we get, just everybody. How do you pick and choose?
Well, I was just saying some people worked.
Yeah, people did, so
So-
they worked and it was hell. Right?
Same, Vicky.
No, but I'm just saying, you know, that was,
Vicky, you don't have to tell me it was hell. I was out in it for 2 days.
so
I wasn't.
why don't we just
sitting inside-
tell all of our valued employees,
It wasn't
8 hours of extra personal time. You figure out if you're gonna, how you're gonna use it with this, every single employee.
Same thing with Shelley. She
Yep, everybody.
gets to add it. Randy, Shelley gets to add it to her.
Tell you that an extra 8 hours, thank you.
So
All
we got
full-time employees get 8 hours, if they're part-time, they're prorated. So, does that seem like a fair situation for every employee?
I second.
You say, well, every employer, every admin employee.
Every employee. Because the guys and the girls and everybody who worked their butts off. And just getting back and forth, they spend a lot of their own personal time with extra commutes. I mean, our road crew doesn't live close these days. They drive a long distance. Marlboro, Newfane, Whitingham. It's not like they all live in Dover anymore. Scott.
Just to clarify, we're saying like, one time, this.
No, one time.
Okay.
Sure. Yes.
One at a time, and I slept at the firehouse. As the storm started, just so he could be there, because he knew it'd be impossible to get there. And if you have a police officer who is snow blowing his driveway to get out, he's entitled to some time for that. He's not on the clock.
They're not full-time employees, they're not even
The fire
part-time.
department.
Yeah, they're not what we would consider a benefited employee.
Right.
They don't
exactly.
earn personal time, they don't get vacation time.
Right.
So I think that those would not
That's a
really
different
apply. Okay, Jeanette,
Um. I'm just not sure how to phrase it.
Phrase it in
I think obviously if we could have prepared, we would have.
correct.
I mean, our town office staff is pretty darn great and we do a lot for this town also. And I feel like this is making it sound like because we stayed home, which was not a great situation, believe me, I wasn't, you know, on my couch eating bonbons. It just, I know, so without, because I couldn't get anything. I don't know, I just, maybe we just shouldn't have even, you know.
so
I
what's,
just-
tell me what you don't like about saying yes, and even those who came to work should get some extra
Oh,
time.
no, I mean, I guess that's great. I think that's great. I think what you're offering is wonderful. I guess I just don't want it to be a reflection on this building's staff
No, it's
that
not.
we
No, I,
didn't try to get there.
No, 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 it's not.
that's why I suggested everybody, because everybody had hardship in some way or another.
Mhm.
Whether it was leaving kids or, you know, having to get up 3 hours extra early to try to get out of your driveway, so you can show up for the shift. Jim,
I think that's a fair proposal that you presented for all the valued employees in the town. And I would hope there's no further discussion and it just gets voted on.
basically Jim's calling the question if he can.
So the motion then would be that all full-time town employees
Well, what about prorated?
will be awarded,
Do we have any?
all full-time,
Yes.
all full-time employees will be awarded an additional 8 hours of personal time
This calendar year.
this calendar year in light of the storm of March 23rd.
March.
March 13th.
Well,
Well, it's 14th.
March 14th. And 15th. Yeah.
all right. Any other discussion on that?
Was it seconded? I'm sorry.
You said,
I second it.
anything else? All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Rob.
Sorry, it was a rough discussion.
Okay, we have unfinished business now. We have the lost document of the Dover Select Board duties and guidelines, basically stating that the board is required to go to by town and special tax select board meetings, budget review meetings, employee review meetings, including pre-review of for presentations, Board of Civil Authority, Board of Abatement, and site visits. And it's understood people are gonna miss meetings from time to time, but we set a goal of attending a minimum of 80% of the meetings. And yet people also that you should try to read all the information sent to you by various department heads and also respond to Jeanette or the office manager in a timely manner. So this is a document that the board can adopt and everybody can sign. Now, this wasn't included in this year's town report because we were only keeping attendance for 6 months. So it started with the 1st of July last year. So next year it will be in the town report attendance.
I make a motion that we adopt the town of Dover Select Board duties and guidelines.
Is there a second? Yeah. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. All right. Moving on to the visiting nurse feedback. Questions from town meetings from Becky. This was very interesting, Jeanette.
It was.
Thank you.
I should reach out.
So Becky reached out to one of her colleagues about the visiting nurse situation that was discussed at town meeting. There are 3 residents in long-term care in Westover. And the visiting nurse is not taking on any new home health referrals in any of its previous areas south of Bellas Falls. So I'm not sure how many people are still going to be served by home health in Dover area, but they are discharged from services from VNH. And they will not be allowed back in. I'm not sure how temporary this is, but it covered RNs, PTs, OTs. So physical and occupational therapy. It does not affect long-term care and maternal child care. And then she spoke to this Jean Wolker from VNH, and she confirmed that they would not be receiving VNH services here for anything but long-term and maternal child. So basically they are at this pulling out, and it's very frustrating because Sash, they didn't tell Sash about this, and how when they're a state organization, can they just pull back from this area completely? So it's a big loss of home nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, that's not gonna be because they just don't have staff.
But they have our money.
Not yet.
No, I was gonna say that Joe and I were talking about that. They did continue to ask for a $3,000 appropriation. Which was approved at town meeting. They can't request it until after July 1st, but that might be something to consider.
But we voted to approve based on the belief that they were providing services. And we can't, as a board, go back and change that vote from town meeting, can we?
Well, we can change the line items. I mean, everything is not set in stone because we said on an appropriation list that we're gonna give somebody some money.
So
It's like we have a budget for everything, and if we have to spend extra on copier paper, we're gonna spend extra on copier paper because we need to have it. Or we don't need to have it if we don't have the copier anymore.
Right.
So, yeah, and even at town meeting, voters can't say, I want you to take, they can say that. And if we don't adhere to it, they can certainly slap us, but we can say, no, we're still gonna do that. And then we have to,
I think they'll slap us if we give them the money. And the VNH is not working.
I appreciate Becky Arbella asking these questions because this is news, and they weren't very forthright coming forward saying that they weren't to ask us for money and know that they're pulling back from this area is pretty frustrating. So.
That's
Stop.
Are they saying that this is like for the foreseeable future, or this could change, or?
They don't have staff.
I understand that, yeah, so
They
if they
still
had,
have-
so if they had staff, are they going to come back in? You don't know that?
I don't know that. I don't know.
Because
Changing.
And
So. Yes,
well, we don't know, because it said, except for long-term care or maternal child health, we don't know. If long-term care, there's 3 people involved, and maternal child care, we have no idea.
no idea. But the birth rate in Dover is pretty low.
Yeah.
So we can do 2 things. We can just say now we're not gonna do it. We can wait for their request letter and deal with it at that point.
Really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Table it and wait for the question.
Okay.
Send the money until we talk.
So when the request letter comes in, if it comes in, then we will respond to that with our own questions and see what if the situation has changed. If not, the board may decide not to fund that $3,000 appropriation. Yes. Linda.
So does that mean, aside from Sash, there's nothing in this area
There's,
well,
for visiting?
there's another service that covers here, Bayada.
Okay,
Right.
they are a different organization.
right.
They are also, I don't know if it's affecting them as well, it probably is. But we don't appropriate money to them, they haven't asked us for it, yes.
The only other one is more for seniors, but it's the Council on Aging Senior Solutions. They have an appropriation for 24.
But they don't offer nursing care, do they? I don't think so.
think so. I think it might be more like, home visits, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
For the elderly.
So is that what the board wants to do? Wait and see if we get an appropriation?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a good idea.
Okay. All right. Now we're on the police. We have the retirement letter from the office manager, Michelle Mann. Sarah, you want to read that?
Sure. To the Dover Select Board from Michelle Mann, this letter is to inform you that I will be retiring from the office manager position with the Dover Police Department on December 31st, 2023. What began as a simple position as a secretary and data entry position evolved into dispatching, computer networking, grant writing, and too many more skills and responsibilities to name. For nearly 33 years, it has been both a pleasure and challenge to work at the Dover Police Department, and I know I will miss it. Thank you, Michelle Mann. She really does need to list her skills and responsibilities because we're gonna have to hire somebody.
So the only thing I will add is that she, and I mentioned this to the board before, that she will obviously be missed because as chief, I've gotten numerous emails, communication from not only state auditors, but federal auditors on the work that she had done, where errors we had not. Where we did not have errors in submitting our data to both the state and federal because of the work that she had done compared to other police departments. So I can say, well, I don't miss her because I'll be gone as well, but I'm sure the rest of the staff will miss her as well. She did a fabulous job.
And the ad for her replacement has gone into the paper.
It has, and I have received one application so far, I'm anticipating probably at least one more, maybe. I think rumor has it, and we'll see.
So do you want
A
to
motion to accept the resignation with regrets and best wishes for her future endeavors.
December 31st?
Effective December 31st, 2023. The last day.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye. Thank you, Michelle. Who is my sister. I'm just trying to keep the distance on. But thank you. It's been, you guys were a good team, 30 years and Rich was the first one out.
Yeah, she was there, Bobby, Richard, I,
Yeah, both.
kind of like the. Not 3 but 4 musketeers, maybe. Sorry.
Okay. So on the retirement world, I just wanted to get the board kind of to sit down, start thinking about hiring a new chief. And I was given some information from Trevor Whipple, who works with the LCT. And so I'd like everybody to take this from the board tonight and just take it, read it. These are some guidelines for and pondering, knowing that we do have an internal candidate who's interested in. Mike, would you submit a formal letter of interest in being, so that we have that as a record, just so that we have that for our next meeting in the police chief position, assuming you don't change your mind in the next 2 weeks. But they talk about internal candidates, they talk about external candidates, they talk about out-of-state candidates and all the other. But everybody should read it and kind of just get an idea about it. And even and I'm trying to remember, I went through and tried to read all the minutes that I could from 2013 before leading up. Nothing.
No, you guys appointed me directly.
Yeah, so, but I was pretty new on the board, Joe was on the board, you were pretty new too, were you on the board? Yes, I think you were. Yes,
I read the thing that Jeanette sent us in the position and chief of police. Is this you start while we're out?
this is something that the state's put together, this, I think Bobby may have written in 2000.
Yeah, the second one is really.
And then the second one is the one that Randy actually signed, but it basically says what he does. It's not a job description really.
It's
This
more
was
of
the
a-
one from 2017.
It's a shorter down version
Right.
of one that Bobby had implemented many years ago, which Jeanette, was that the one you sent me? Yeah, and the one that Jeanette sent me, part of that I have seen, other parts of it I have not seen, and I don't think I think what she found, what she saw was a thing that Bobby generated many, many years ago. And I don't believe anybody on this board was on the board back, because that was when he was doing step raise or step pay raises.
Yeah, it's
That
all
was
in there.
never,
Yeah.
yeah, so I never saw that. That was never part of the policy. However, those, I briefly skimmed over what she had sent, but those job descriptions in what Jeanette sent you was in an older departmental organizational policy. The only thing is, it just, to me, that policy dragged on way too long, so we had done a shorter version of that.
So that's a place to start thinking, there's some guidance about. Even with internal candidates, you should have a community, with equity, people who, all kinds of stakeholders, ask questions, interview. So it's something that, we kind of gotta wrap our heads around, if that's what we wanna do. So that's all I wanted to do, is just get everybody thinking about it.
What's in our English from Trevor Local, the guy from BLC.
Yes. Okay. Anything else on that tonight? Okay, next we're gonna go into the Board of Liquor Control.
I make a motion that we go into the Board of Liquor Control.
All in favor?
Uh,
Sarah, do you wanna talk about our meeting
I was actually gonna suggest that we do the license renewals,
first?
the other ones, and get those done, and
Okay.
then we can come back to that.
Yep,
So,
so we're gonna skip over Snow Republic.
yeah. So make a motion that we approve the first and third class and outside consumption permits for Handlebar Hospitality LLC, DBA Valley View Saloon.
second.
Do them all? Okay. Do we have, are there any that we need to not?
I'm all set.
All right, first and second class and outside consumption permit for Deerfield Beverage Concepts LLC, DBA Deerfield Bar and Bottle. First and third class permits for Mount Snow at Snow Barn, Sundance, Fairways, Harriman's, Cousins, Bull Wheel Summit, and Corinthia. Second class permit at Grand Summit Deli, and second class tobacco and tobacco substitute permits for Guest Convenience Stores, Inc., DBA 7-Eleven.
Second.
Yes.
I just amend your motion to receipt of any missing documents, because
Pending receipt of any missing documents.
we're still waiting on some, like liquor seminars or
So I amended to say pending receipt of any missing documents. Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? On these? All in favor? Aye. Revisit discussion of parking concerns at Snow Republic, which we also skipped over the Snow Republic first and third class. Outside consumption permit, and yes, and outside consumption.
So we had a conversation with the gentleman from Liquor Control, Police Chief, Becky, myself, and Mr. Bansley and his manager. And
Mike.
that's right. You weren't sitting. You were out
It's
of
hard to sit in uniforms.
You were out on my sideline, I didn't see. And so basically, the concern has been a couple of things. One is parking along Route 100, and that's kind of the primary concern. There's also concern about how congested the parking lot gets, to the degree that there have been weekends where there's been, it appears that cars are not able to get in and out, which suggests that if there was an emergency vehicle that had to get in there, it could be very challenging, and that could be a hazard to the people there and the people on Route 100. So we were discussing the possibility of imposing some parking requirements on Snow Republic, specifically that there be a parking attendant to try to maintain flow in the parking lot and to keep people from parking on Route 100. And so, you know, the conversation was about, did the board want to impose that as a condition? Once we issue the permit, then we don't get another bite at the apple until the next year when the permit comes up. There's nothing that can be done between renewals. We can't go and say, well, you're having a parking problem, you haven't resolved it on your own. So now we want you to get a parking attendant. We don't have that power. We would have to wait another year to get that. So we were discussing the possibility of having the parking lot attendant, and then discussing when we would impose that, because obviously we're not going to say every single day that you're open. You know, Tuesday afternoons, it's probably unlikely that they would need one, but we were discussing when it made sense to have that requirement, that stipulation.
What was the reception?
Mr. Mansley indicated he was willing to consider that. He had requested that we allow him to do it voluntarily for this year and see how it goes. That's certainly a topic for conversation. And then in terms of if we did decide to go forward with a parking attendant, what days, dates, conditions would we stipulate that the attendant had to be in attendance?
Yeah.
And who is going to be the one to oversee if he actually does what he needs to do?
How do we ensure that he's done?
How do we enforce if it isn't being done? Who enforces it? How does that work? You can implement all these devices,
If
but
it's
we have things in the past, I've been on board for many years, where we implement something, but there's no enforcement.
if
So
it's a condition of their liquor permit,
They can reserve
they
it.
can move their liquor
then we
license.
call BCL and tell them that they're not, and who's that point person, who's gonna be in charge of when there's a problem? Who does it? It's not us as select board. Is it Tabby? Is it the police department? Is it PCL has a video shooting down it? I don't mind coming up with a solution, and it makes a good solution. But when it doesn't work, how do we enforce it?
Randy,
So what would end up happening is, in that case, Joe, is that if you, let's say, put a stipulation that he has to have a parking lot attendant in there, say on Friday, Saturday night, you know, I don't know, Martin Luther, busy summer holiday, whatever days you decide to pick. And if there is, and you guys are so correct me if I'm wrong from the DLC had said, but anyway, what will end up happening is if cars are on Route 100 on a day that you have stipulated that he needs a parking lot attendant, obviously we would potentially know about it either by driving by, seeing it, or we're being called to it, which then a case is generated. We would then, knowing that that is a stipulation, we would then contact liquor control, let them see the report, tell them about the report, and then they would see, they mentioned some regulation, if I remember, that they would go after for being that. My understanding is that if you stipulate that he has to have a parking lot attendant on a certain day, there is nobody on Route 100 and there is no parking lot attendant, they will not violate it. It has to come down to that there was an issue with interfering with traffic and parking on Route 100.
So that the enforcement would come not necessarily because there was no parking lot attendant, but because the reason for having the parking lot attendant still existed. We need people parking on Route 100. That would trigger liquor control to say, well, now we have an issue.
Dan first.
Go ahead, Dan.
I would mandate it and not make it optional, because I know Mr. Bansley, he's a criminal defense lawyer and. In the past, and knowing him closely, I know that he'll say anything to get his point. And also to, being my business is next to Dover Bar and Grill, I remember occasionally when Mike would have a problem, they would close him down for a week. You know, whether he violated staying up too late or, you know, something. The liquor authority does have that power to do that. Did they mention that they would possibly consider if he violated? any
It
of
was,
these things?
we didn't go into the extent of what happens with the violation.
Right,
I suspect that it's not a hard and fast, there's probably a, you know, here's a warning, or, you know, that there's a progression.
I would assume it's a case by case.
Yes.
Yeah, they take everything.
They look at the degree of violation.
I've been involved in several liquor control hearings too, so it may even be a matter of they would present something before a board at a hearing regarding that. So it wouldn't be a hard and fast rule, it would be, the board would then decide.
I agree that I think that it would be, if this is our one opportunity to write it as a stipulation of the liquor license, and so voluntarily gives another year of. Because they think that they've done a good job this year, so I think that there's still, they probably have improved, but I think there's still room for improvement. So I think that if we make it, if we stipulate certain times, certain days, certain events. That they might put forward, then it's cut and dry. And I did ask Mike at the meeting if since the last chair and TCs has added their parking attendant, if they've had any problems, and I heard nothing, right? Haven't been any real parking problems.
Yes, that is what I said. I've since learned there was one instance with TCs where there was a car on the road. The attendant didn't know about it when it was brought to his attention, he went in and dealt with it. So yes, it's not foolproof, but
No.
it works our problem
Thank you.
without wasting more time of ours.
So we were looking at probably every Saturday from
We're looking at,
December 1st or that's
well, for the ski season, so theoretically, I guess, Thanksgiving until Easter. Is typically ski season.
Yeah.
Right?
and then holiday Sundays.
So holidays, any holiday weekend or holiday week,
Right.
either during the ski season or during the summer. 4th of July weekend is just as busy there as Columbus Day or as Martin Luther King,
And special events.
and special events, any special.
Okay,
events.
now Joe.
okay, that's great, as long as the police department agrees upon that, they're the ones that see it more than we do. So does that make sense to them? Because they're gonna be the ones.
That seems like
to
the
check.
busy times, so.
That's all I'm asking, we're setting something that we. Don't know, but I totally agree with. Through those, at least every Saturday through that time, but also. The same thing occurs on busy 4th of July, busy.
That's why I said holiday weeks and weekends and special events. So, and Joe, my point with that is, if there's nobody parking on Route 100, whether there's a parking attendant there or not, the police department won't get involved. They'll only get involved if there's people parking on 100 and somebody notifies them.
Sure.
They're not gonna be patrolling every night to make sure, like going by every hour to make sure there's nobody parking.
I'm personally sick of getting notified,
Okay.
okay, so that's where I have.
I didn't know you had been notified.
Oh, I get notified by lots of people all the time when I, so.
You mean officially or just people?
No,
calling you and
people
saying,
calling.
"You're on the select board, why aren't you doing anything about this?"
All right, well, we're trying to do something about it.
So I would like to hear from Walt Vansley, who's on there, that this is agreeable and this is gonna work for him, so. Or we're not going to,
No, but.
okay, we don't hear from him.
No, I didn't say that at all. I'm happy to hear from him, but this is not, this is not a
I'm
negotiation.
not saying it's no issue, I'd like to hear from him directly that he's going to abide by this in a public meeting. So that there's no hearsay, she said, anything else, that's what I want to hear.
Dan,
He thought we ambushed them last time, so.
Yeah, we want to make sure he gets, to be speaking.
well.
I'm here.
Okay, did you hear our discussion?
I did.
Any comments?
Yeah, I guess first I would renew my request to let me do this voluntarily. I based this on when I initially had the problem last year. I met with the police chief. We talked about it, and things significantly improved. Coming into this year, I've only had one reported incident. That one Saturday we talked about last time. I haven't had it on other days. Other times it was that one incident. I'm agreeable to having a parking attendant on during the ski season on Saturdays and Sundays when it's a holiday weekend. I'm agreeable to do that, and I intend on doing that based upon all our discussions. I think imposing anything more than that is very restrictive and is not based on any fact that's been brought before the board. Nobody's ever complained in the summer or other times. I'm aware of the Saturdays during ski season. So I think doing more than that is addressing a problem that has not even been put before the board.
Thank you.
And I agree with respond to that.
Sarah,
As somebody who drives by there quite a bit. I can't speak to whether there have been any formal complaints, but there certainly have been. Times during ski season, during holiday weeks, not just on Saturdays and Sundays. When there have been an excess of cars there, and in the summer, the parking is pretty. Uncontrolled as well, and that's why I felt that that holiday weeks and weekends, even during the summer, there have been situations where it has certainly appeared that there have been an issue. Whether somebody has called the police about it or not, I can't speak to. But that's why I wanted to include those in there.
I've never heard anything about anything outside of ski season. So nothing is coming back to me, and I think that should always be a starting point. Just like when the police chief came down and talked to me, that was our starting point to address the situation. Going right away into summer and limiting me based upon you receiving some calls or a drive-by without me even knowing anything about it, I think that's an ambush.
yes, Scott.
Please clarify, what are we saying from what time to what time? Are we saying like every, like what are the specifics here? And personally, like if he's, I don't want to put something in place that it's going to be too hard to enforce, or it's just going to be a rule just for nothing, and things have improved.
So are you willing to wait a year and let him try to resolve it himself?
Without any, because we have no control. Once we issue the permit, we've got nothing, we can do nothing for a year.
No way.
No way.
Okay, so it sounds like the board is. It sounds like, well, we're probably gonna write some stipulations into your liquor license based on just that response by 3 of the board members. So,
Should we have a conversation about, I mean, Mr. Vansley brings up the idea that perhaps there shouldn't be considerations for the summer. And are there any other? What are other people's thinking?
have we had any complaints about summertime parking? I know events, have been a couple of events that have had quite a few people.
Events and holidays.
Summertime ones, Randy.
So I can't say that we've had really a lot of complaints or say a lot of issues in the summer. The only thing I will say as far as the parking in the summer is that I'm not going to remember how the statute reads. However, they are parked on the side of the road. However, they are off the shoulder. So again, I'm not 100% sure how this whole statute reads, but at that point, they are off the shoulder. They are not really impeding traffic that I'm aware of. I don't know if you can add any more to that or not.
The last part of what you said is what's important. If it's impeding traffic, it becomes a safety issue. And it has been that. And as a PD, we don't always start a case, so it's hard to go back and look at it. And that might be on our, but bad on us. But we don't always start a case. If we drive by and we feel like something might be unsafe because traffic's bottlenecking, it's hard to see around that corner sometimes. We've gone in, we've talked to people, they've moved their cars. We might not have documentation with that, and Mr. Bandon could quite possibly not be aware of that because we've done look at the patrons and their staff. Our goal is just to fix the problem, and we did. Now that we know it's a bigger issue and it's become a bigger issue, we're making sure to start cases every time so that we can track it, but it has been an issue in the summer. I've been there in the summer. It was only when there was an event that I remember, a busy weekend, and they had something going.
Linda?
Can he expand his parking lot? I mean, I don't.
We've been, no. Well, here's the thing, hold on, no, that's just not part, that's not information.
There's a whole nother conversation.
Dan,
But it does, in regard to the summer, if they're off the shoulder, they're off the shoulder of the road, they're going way beyond the 21 parking spots. So they're violating that as well. So I think that, any of the weekends or summer times. That they should be.
Sarah, then Scott.
I was just gonna say, and I know that we've had at least one resident come to the board at a select board meeting to complain about. In the summer, the way cars, because of the fact that they park on the lawn, basically, so they're not always just coming out where the driveway is, and that they have cut people off, people have been cut off. And it's created a traffic hazard, which it's a momentary thing, so it's not like someone's gonna call the cops because it's a long-standing issue, but we did have someone come to us and specifically complain about that. And express concern that that was creating hazard with the way people were exiting that parking area.
Scott.
Just. Is it like, are we basing this in facts, like, has it gotten better from previous years? Has this year been better than previous years? Just.
Sarah.
I would say, based on what Mike and Randy just said, we don't know, because there were times when there were issues. And a formal case wasn't started, so the police department doesn't have quantifiable data, they just know they've been called, they've gone down, they've spoken to people, so we can't say for sure. That we know things are better. There's nothing quantifiable now, apparently that's going to start changing. And so we'll have more information, but if we impose this parking restriction, then I would hope that would automatically, that things would be a lot better. Because it would be getting addressed at the location.
I just personally would like to think that. Be putting this, if he wants to, if he says he's gonna do it, that he would put a parking person in place and that. Things would get better, and I don't wanna be whatever, put the place on oversight of what days to micromanage and do all that.
We wouldn't be at this point if it had occurred or he had any representation that he would do it on his own. So that's why we are in this position right now. Sorry, just say that we do it on us.
Okay, Dan, we're
Plus,
gonna,
in regards to Mr. Bansley in the summertime, he has another brewery in Mystic Seaport. So he's not in attendance in the summer that often.
are you aware of that? I mean, is that hearsay or are you?
I've been in both places. So
I was gonna say, the fact that Mr. Bansley isn't on premises is not an issue, he has management, he has people. Who have phone now, there's been an additional layer of communication between the police department and his staff, so I don't think that his presence on premise is necessarily the reason things will work or not work. And Scott, to address your area, the police department is not gonna be micromanaging, it's strictly gonna be, if a complaint comes in, we now have an enforcement mechanism that will allow us to control the situation better than we had had in the past.
So,
Yes, Joe.
so just like Sarah said, now we have a fair playing field. We've asked, it hasn't occurred, and we have to do this. But as long as he does what he's supposed to do, we shouldn't have any more issues. Bottom line.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion with this, with the parking attendant criteria spelled out?
So make a motion that the liquor licenses for Snow Republic include the following stipulation. That a parking attendant be on premises and that there be a parking attendant on Saturdays throughout the ski season, which will be defined as Thanksgiving to Easter. That there be a parking attendant on holiday weeks and weekends year round. And for any special events occurring at Snow Republic. That the hours that this person would serve would start at 5 p.m.
Two.
I mean, it's been lunchtime, they get slammed on the weekend.
So for lunch and dinner service. 11:30.
Yes.
So maybe the easiest way is if his hours are, say, from noon to, and I think I heard him say in our meeting, they can usually close by, 9 or 10. That then maybe the easiest stipulation is that I think my personal opinion is that the parking lot attendant should be there to at least closing time. Or the latest closing time. The earliest is, was it that one Saturday? I think I mentioned, I don't have it here, the parking issue started at 2:30 or 3 o'clock or something, whatever it was, so. I don't know if he opens up any earlier, so maybe it's just while he's open for business, maybe that's the easiest, I'll do that. But at least until they're closed.
So that the parking attendant be in attendance on the day stipulated during hours of operation.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Any opposed?
Scott, no, say no, abstain, what?
You can
Say no, say no, no. 4-1.
All right,
Okay,
so now I make a motion that we approve the first and third class and outside consumption permits for Snow Republic with the stipulations that just wrote.
Second.
any other discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
That was unanimous, Janelle.
Make a motion to come out of Board of Liquor Control.
Second.
All in favor?
Um,
Next, we have the consent agenda, which is approve the minutes of March 8th, 2023.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of March 8th, 2023.
Second. Any changes, corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, we need to have a motion to approve the warrants for March 18th, 2023 for $192,779.73. Nobody made that motion.
No, we can make a motion to approve the warrants of March 18th for $192,779.73. Now you can say.
Second.
There you go.
Any comments, questions? All in favor? Aye. FYIs, do we have any? Liaison reports. We do have an executive session that Linda requested for personnel. Is that correct, Linda?
Yes.
So we will, I'd like to
Adjourn the motion to adjourn at 7:23.
no, we're to go into executive session. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye.
Sarah, I meant to tell you.